Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum and a very good afternoon, everyone. Okay, I am Siti Nurma Hanim Hadie from Anatomy Department, School of Medical Sciences, USM. First of all, I would like to thank MINES for giving me and my team the opportunity to share our research on AEEMI. And the title of our presentation today is AEEMI SDG 4 in Anatomy. So I'll be explaining about AEEMI in a short while, but I believe that everyone knows what is SDG. Right, so this is SDG, Sustainable Development Goals. There are 17 Sustainable Development Goals that were developed by the United Nations in 2015. And these SDGs, they are interrelated each other and they share common aim, which is to produce a sustainable tomorrow for the world population. But I'm interested to explain more on SDG 4, which is the quality education. All right, so the scope of quality education is more on inclusive education, equity in education, and also lifelong learning. But our research focus on how to improve the quality of education in anatomy, particularly in medical schools. And therefore, we have to begin with quality assurance. And as we all know, quality assurance is always about evaluation. It's the systematic evaluation of education provision that involves many stakeholders. So it can be in the form of external, internal self-evaluation, and getting our student feedback is actually a form of evaluation as well, because it's the fastest and the most feasible method to get input on our education system. So what do we measure? Of course, the elements in education environment. So for anatomy, so we have to measure education environment that is specific to anatomy. And prior to our research, okay, our initial aim was that we wanted to know how our students perceive the anatomy education environment in our institution. Unfortunately, at that time we didn't have a specific tool, valid and reliable tool to measure the anatomy education environment. Yes, we have several tools that measure the education environment in the general medical and allied health sciences construct, but this tool do not cater for some elements in anatomy like cadaveric dissection, body donation, and many more. So that was our initial aim. Okay? That was the reason why we initiated the study. So alhamdulillah, we managed to produce an inventory for quality improvement, and this inventory is valid and reliable, and we have been using it for feedback mechanism tool. But along the way, we realized that this tool need to be upgraded. We need to increase the generalizability so that we can use that as a benchmarking tool, and we can benchmark our anatomy education system with other institutions, so we know that we are at par with others as well. All right, so for our research, we actually conducted two studies. The first study was conducted in 2013. It was the development and validation of anatomy education environment measurement inventory. Also, so this is AEEMI. Okay, and the results of this study was published in Anatomical Sciences Education in 2017, and in 2019 we have cross-validated the inventory across 11 public and private institutions in Malaysia, and we managed to publish it in BMC Medical Education in 2021, and this is the one that we have submitted to MINES. I think it's important for me to highlight several issues in anatomy education. These issues are general issues, global issues that have been reported in many literatures, okay, but some of these issues are very related to our context in Malaysia. Okay, among that is the first one is declining anatomy knowledge, which have led to procedural and surgical error, and some even extended up to medical legal litigation. And about teaching methodology, we still don't know what is the best teaching method in anatomy, despite extensive research in teaching methodology. There's an ongoing debate on whether we should eliminate the traditional method like cadaveric dissections, lectures, didactic lectures, and many more, because of because some of these methods seem not to be feasible in the integrated modern curriculum, or should we just concentrate on using modern tools only? So it's still, we are still unsure, right? And in terms of the syllabus and content, anatomy is it's a very dry and content-driven subject. So there is a lot of content to be taught. So we don't know how much to teach, what to teach, and we are or whether we are teaching enough or not. And in terms of anatomy teachers, research has proven that anatomy teachers they are facing with high teaching load, high workload, and some even do not have the opportunity for career progression, and they have limited opportunity for professional development. Some even digitally illiterate. And for anatomy assessment, it's very difficult to test for high order cognitive and psychomotor in anatomy exam, especially summative exam, and it's almost impossible to test for effective attributes in summative assessment. So we have to cater that under formative assessment. So these are among the issues that have been reported worldwide. So if we can measure our anatomy education environment, we can detect what are the issues in our institutions, and we can take proactive measures to solve the problem, or even preventive measures to prevent the problem. All right, so it's very important to measure the education environment. And for those who are not familiar with educational educational environments are factors in the learning climate, in the learning environment, okay, which affect the students' learning. For example, like culture and norms of an institution, these include rules and regulations, okay? The curriculum like syllabus, learning outcome, teaching methodology, assessment, all right? The teachers, okay? Their ability to teach, their teaching behavior, their ability to be role model for the students. And other than that is physical surrounding, which include facilities, teaching tools, and social environment like peer support and mentoring system. But recently, researchers have come up with several new elements of educational environment, such as social psychological factors. These include intercultural adaptation, social equity, and social tolerance. So why do we need to measure educational environment? Because research has shown that educational environment is a strong predictor of students' learning. It influences students' ability to learn, it influences their motivation, and also psychological well-being. So that is why we need to measure our anatomy education environment before we conduct any program evaluation and change, because this measurement will provide valuable input on the elements that affect students' learning. And that's why we produce AEEMI, Anatomy, Education, Environment, Measurement, Inventory. So at this point, I believe that everyone knows already what is AEEMI. AEEMI is just an inventory that measures students' perceptions of the educational environment that is specific to anatomy, and it was developed in 4 phases. Okay. The first phase is the development of domains and items, okay, using the Delphi technique method, and after that, we have the validity. We have investigated the content and response process validity of these item and domains in the second phase, right? And in the third phase, we investigated the internal structure of this inventory by conducting construct validity study. And what we did was we looked at the dimensionality of the inventory, and we also looked at the item factor relationship. This was done in one center only. And in phase 4, we conducted cross-validation at multi-center level. So through this process, we managed to develop a valid and reliable inventory that measures anatomy, education, environment. All right, this is for the first phase, okay, development of domains and items using Delphi technique method. For those who are not familiar with Delphi technique is an iterative method to get consensus from the from a panel of experts. So there are 4 phases of Delphi technique. Phase 1 is about exploration of subject under discussion. Phase 2 is to reaching understanding on how the group view the subject. Phase 3, resolving disagreement if there is significant disagreement. And phase 4 is final evaluation based on the gathered information. So the iteration process can happen here in phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. So if, like, for example, if you have reached phase 3, maybe you have to go back to phase 2 or even sometime to phase 1. Okay, and this process happens in several rounds until you reach consensus and you conclude that in phase 4. So our study, we conducted 6 rounds of technique. So the first round involved identification of domains, whereby we actually email 9 anatomies, okay, in Malaysia, requesting them to provide some several possible components or domains of the environment. Okay, so basically we have identified 10 domains. And in round 2 is about the verification of domain, whereby all the identified domain were sent via email to all the anatomies for verification. And what they did was they scrutinized each domain in terms of its appropriateness and applicability in the current setting. And in round 3, we requested anatomies to provide definition for each domain. Initially, it was independently. This is based on their expert opinion. But once we get the list of definition, we asked them to critically appraise this domain among themselves. And this was done via email until a common definition for each domain was coined. So these 3 rounds was conducted. These 3 rounds were conducted via email because this study was conducted in 2013. So it's before the COVID-19 pandemic. So at that time, online meeting is not really popular. So the most suitable or preferred method was through email. So we actually took some time to complete round 1 until round 3, okay, because the iteration also happens here. And in round 4, we conducted a face-to-face meeting with 5 medical educationists. We presented 10 domains and their definitions for them to praise. And in this meeting, we received another 2 additional domains, right? And in round 5, we sent another email to all the anatomies requesting them to provide items for each domain, items that can represent each domain. And this item construction was conducted independently by all anatomies. And in round 6, all items, we conduct an item construction workshop attended by 9 anatomists and 2 medical educationists. In this workshop, all items that were constructed in round 5 were critically appraised. And at the end of this workshop, we managed to produce 11 domains and 102 items, which was published in 2014. So these 11 domains and 132 items were used for the second phase of the study, which is the content and response process validity study. And the first stage of this validity study is, of course, the content validity study, whereby we distributed all the items and domains, the 132 items and 11 domains to 10 anatomies from Malaysia, India, Australia, United Kingdom, United States, and Saudi Arabia. And what they did was they actually provide their content expert ratings on the relevancy of the items toward the domains, and we have calculated the content validity indices using Pollitt et al. Equation. And since we have 10 experts, so we are actually, the minimum requirement is 3, so we can just exclude item with ICVI, item content validity index of less than 0.8 only. So only 26 items were removed and we were left with 106. So this 106 item and the second phase of validity study, which is response process validity. And it was distributed to 30 volunteer medical students from a public medical schools. And these students, they rated their perceptions on the clarity of language and comprehensibility of the sentences. And we used their response to calculate the response process validity indices. Again, we adopted Pollitt et al. Equation, right? And fortunately, no item were removed because all items achieve index response process index, item response process index of more than 0.8. So all items were accepted, and we proceed with the internal structure, which is stage 3. Okay. In phase 3, okay, the internal structure or the construct validity study, okay, it is also subdivided into 2 stages. Each one, okay, we distributed all 106 items to 322 volunteer year 1 and year 2 USM medical students, academic session 2014 and 15. So these students, they rated their perceptions on anatomy, education, environment in USM, and we use their response to analyze for factorial analysis. Okay, this is EFA, exploratory factor analysis, and we found out that 57 items achieve a factor loading of plus minus 0.4, and this item found to load on 8 domains. So only 57 items were carried to stage 2. So these 57 items were then distributed to 483 volunteer year 1 and year 2, still preclinical year medical student, but different batches, okay, 2015 and 2016, also in USM. And their response were used to conduct confirmatory factor analysis, and we found out that the model fit was achieved only after removal of 31 items. Okay, so only 25 items were found to load on 6 domains, right? And for the reliability measures, internal consistency, we calculated the composite reliability coefficient by using the R software, and the value range from 0.604 to 0.86, suggesting acceptable to high internal consistency. So with that, we managed to come out with the first validated version of AEEMI, okay, with 6 factors and 25 items. So these are the 6 factors, okay, and the underlying 25 items. So in phase 4, which is the still internal structure, but this is the cross-validation process. We conducted a cross-validation process across 11 public and private institutions in Malaysia. So these were the institutions involved in the validation process. What we did was we distributed the 106 item which has been proven to be content valid and response process valid, and the 11 domains to not only preclinical year students but also clinical year students from these institutions, right? Because the reason why we also distribute it to a clinical year student is because we want to include the generalizability of the instrument. And we conducted the construct validity measures again, and also internal consistency, and we found out that AEEMI is now best fit by 5 factors and 26 items. So this is the cross-validated versions, a little bit different because we have 5 factors and 26 items. So what's next, right? Okay, we realized that our inventory is not perfect. There is some limitation because given the fact that this inventory was developed before the COVID-19 pandemic. So we realized that some of the items, actually no items represent the multimedia or online learning or digital learning. Initially, there are some items on digital learning, but that items was excluded, were removed during item removal process because it does not achieve a satisfactory validity index. So we believe that we need to revalidate our inventory, but the process should begin from item construction. Okay, so we need to include other items that are related to digital and remote learning as well. But not only that, I think at this point we should involve other experts from different countries to address for intercultural differences. All right, and as a conclusion, okay, is a valid and reliable tool. And it has some implication not only to the practice but to future research as well. Okay, in terms of practice, AEEMI can be used as a feedback mechanism tool because we can understand the perceptions of our students regarding our anatomy education environment, and we can improve our education system from that feedback. Secondly, it can be a benchmarking tool. It's a valid benchmarking tool, at least in Malaysian context, because it has been cross-validated across Malaysia, across different institutions in Malaysia. So by benchmarking our anatomy education system, we know that we are at par with other institutions, right? In terms of research, okay, this study provides a guideline on how to develop and validate an inventory, all right? And for future study, as I mentioned earlier, we should cross-validate AEMI on a global scale by involving other experts in different countries to increase the generalizability, but we should also begin with item construction. We should add more items that represent global anatomy education environment as well, and also the digital learning construct as well. Okay. So these are my team, AEMI team. We are anatomists, we are also medical educationists, and also biostatistician from various institutions in Malaysia, and they have been very committed in helping me to complete the study. With that, I thank you, and I'm happy to receive any questions. Thank you.